guys. Welcome back to the Left of Str8 Show Interviews, the premier podcast that shares the stories of our amazing LGBTQ community and, of course, fantastic straight allies, all from entertainment, foodies, books, music, and advocacy. I'm your host, as always, Scott Fullerton, and let's start talking. Well, hey, friends. Today I'm thrilled to welcome the incredibly talented LGBTQ ally Shani Rigsbee in studio with me. Shani is an accomplished singer, songwriter, actress, and producer who's graced the entertainment industry with her dynamic performances and unforgettable music. You might know her from her powerful vocals on global hits like El Llamado de Pasión or her compelling role in The Keeper, The Legend of Omar Khayyam. But Shani doesn't stop there. Her latest single, Oh My, is capturing ears and hearts worldwide. If that's not enough, Shani has also co-starred, produced, and contributed to the soundtrack of the action-packed movie Dark Asset that's now streaming on Amazon. I can't wait to dive into her multifaceted career, creative process, and what it means to be an artist breaking barriers across both music and film. So let's settle in for a great chat with Shani, but first, take a look.
You run into the one you call your ex, and the visions come in waves and crashing like the ocean. Your temperature will rise, still you're free.
Welcome back, my friends. That was the current single, Oh My, from my special guest today. Shani Rigsbee's in studio, live and in concert in that video. Wow. Welcome to the Left of Str8 Show, my friend. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much. It's great to see you.
Shani, it's so great to meet you. I love that video. I love little brass in my music. The audience is going crazy. How fun was that to film?
It's so fun, you know, going from studio to live and seeing the reaction it's the best.
I bet. I always like to start with a little background for my first-time guest. And with this impressive international resume, our listeners might think that you are from some exotic, beautiful location, but I think it's Arkansas, maybe? Tell me a little bit about where you grew up and what kind of a kid were you?
Yeah, I grew up in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which if you've never been there is a really lovely place. It's actually a national park, and it has a lot of history back in the day of, you know, Al Capone. It takes you all the way back to that because of the natural hot springs and spas. It was like its nickname is the Spa City. So it was a really eclectic place to grow up. But I had a really, you know, simple, warm, wonderful, you know, laid back childhood, and parents that really supported my kind of goal to take on, you know, the arts later. But I spent, you know, my childhood years just being a kid and being immersed in my environment, you know, all the way around until I moved to LA.
Oh, that's amazing. And I mean, speaking of the business, I mean, you wore so many hats in your career from singer-songwriter, actress, producer. I mean, what kind of made you want to go tackle all these things? Sometimes it's hard for me to do one track mind on anything.
Yeah, I tell you, as a little girl, I used to do all this stuff. I used to like make little shows in my garage and invite the neighbors over. And so I think I
Nice.
had that in me, that sort of, project oriented kind of kid. But as I grew up, I think it was a time when everybody kind of wanted you to pick. It's like, are you a
Mm,
singer? Are you an actor? Are you, forget about producing because women weren't even perceived as, being even capable at that time, right? When I was starting,
right,
I mean, it was so rare. But I always admired women that I saw. If I go back and I think of, the divas, I mean, Barbara Streisand, Diana Ross, nobody told them what they could and couldn't do, right? Those were
right.
icons that I grew up looking at. And to me, I kind of emulated it at home, but I didn't really think that I would have a shot at sort of doing all of those things. But it happens organically, for me, it happened organically.
I love that. I'm the same. I mean, I love strong women. I'm a huge fan of Lucille Ball, of course, running her
Oh,
own studio.
love
Then I
her.
saw that she had her own kind of podcast for CBS. I just found out a couple years ago. She was like one of the OGs of podcasting back in the
Love
day.
Lucy.
She
Absolutely.
is amazing.
Incredible woman.
Well, let's kind of start with your music, Shani. I mean, you often feature a mix of cultural influences. How important is for you to incorporate these elements into your work, and what does it represent to you? Because I think it's amazing the way you bring all these influences together.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, that obviously was not part of my background in Arkansas. A lot of this stuff has happened to me since I moved to LA and became exposed to so many amazing different cultures and the diversity that exists here, which then ultimately took me on the road and I toured around the globe for a lot of years and still do. And it's that sort of being, in the thick of all of it and letting those influences affect you. And for me, it almost affected me, I don't want to be corny, but very profoundly because it wasn't just like, oh, that's a cool rhythm. Oh, that's a nice melody. It was like a sense of exoticism and yet a very strong attraction to it. Like I was meant to
Mm.
pursue it. And it wasn't easy because I had to find a formula that made sense. And I still work on that. What is the formula that works for people? Um, yeah, it's one thing to be an artist and kind of come from that place, but you want it to be accessible too. So it was sort of this role of becoming, I guess, a bridge.
Mm. I like all of that. Now, talk about when you're writing a song or producing music. I mean, are you a writer where you kind of hear melodies first, or you write a lyric down and kind of go from there? Or is it a good mix? How do you usually create songs when you're creating songs?
It's a good mix. The most beautiful thing is when the lyric and the melody happen together, which is incredible. Yeah, yeah. But, I mean, it sounds silly too, but it's like I might get an idea doing laundry. I mean, I'm sure songwriters have the same experience. I mean, I'm not really one who sits down at the keyboard and, kind of pounds it out. Not that I have any judgment against that. It's just not really, hasn't really been my way.
Mm.
It can inspire me. If I sit with someone else doing it, I can kind of go somewhere, I guess. But a lot of my ideas come in the shower. Truth be told, it's been that way since I was young. And I think because it's a very contained, warm, womb like environment where creativity happens. And I think there's something to that. But sometimes I've just gotten some ideas like a stream of consciousness lyrically, and I'm like, I don't even know where this is coming from. I don't know. It's almost like it's already been written and I'm just channeling it. So I
Mm.
think there's magic that we don't understand.
Oh, well said. I agree. Well, and you answered my next question. I was going to wonder if you had any rituals or habits that kind of help you get into that zone. How are you able to kind of, now that you're doing all this producing and you've been doing music for so long, how do you keep the producer and the songwriter habits kind of separate so you're not editing yourself constantly and spending 8 years trying to go through one song?
Oh, it's so crazy, isn't it? I mean, it can be, it can be very analytical at times. But now the freedom I have now, and with the most recent song you just played and the album that I have, that was mostly done during COVID, where obviously
Mm.
we were, I mean, it was inspired, and kind of the takeoff point was during COVID, and I tweaked on it for a couple of years. But I think that if you think about that time period, that was also kind of an isolated, I mean, it was isolated, not kind of, it truly was isolated.
Right.
And so it was a matter of like, what can I do, with my, all of these thoughts and things to be constructive artistically and not really edit myself, because that was also like kind of self-care too, right? Your people were hopefully doing constructive things, gardening, cooking, trying new things. So for me it was like going back to my roots and recording music that made me feel really, really good when I was young, and I wanted to sort of soothe. So I didn't want to put any labels on it at all.
Oh, that's great. That's such a smart way to work too. Well, and then you were acting, I think, before singing, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. But I think in around 2003 is when you started contributing to the music of movies and things like that. Talk about how that journey kind of started out and progressed.
So yeah, when I came to LA, I mean, I was in pursuit kind of both music and performing as an actor too. And like every actor, struggled with trying to find representation and doing all those things. So I did that wherever I could get the work. So, like episodic TV and, all of those things. I did whatever I could. Um, and I pursued my music, on the side. I studied with people vocally, and I wrote music and went to the studio and had kind of a home setup and all of that stuff. And you have to be multifaceted, I think, to really survive in the industry these days. It's like you can't just sort of, I don't want to say you can't, but it's just really tough to just rest on one thing. And so for me, I'm grateful that I had these different balls in the air at different times, because when I had the opportunity to kind of pursue music as a performer, going on the road, that paid the bills, that took care of me, and then that led me to kind of develop a reputation, which then meant that people knew who I was and thought of me for musical contributions in movies. And that gave me another leg up to then sort of be more involved in the actual creation of films, or, get in on the ground floor.
Connections are so important, and
So
that's
important.
why I think, especially in the entertainment business, and you never want to burn bridges and everything, because you never know who you're working with today that you're going to end up working down 10 years down the
So
line,
true.
right?
So
Mm.
true.
So true. It's definitely. Now talk about, I mean, your first album, I think, was back Undercurrent. Now you have Oh My out here. The music business has changed so much since then. I'm sure you've changed so much those. And
Yes.
talk about the journey from making Undercurrent to making Oh My. I mean, we've gone from making an album and having a throughway to making singles because they only want singles in, to making streaming when you get like 0.3 cents for every 1,000 streams.
Oh,
How
very
has that
bad.
journey in music been, and how has your journey been with your own sound?
Well, I mean, there's a lot there. You just hit on so many very important points, and the struggle of recording artists nowadays. It's certainly not a picnic. On the one hand, I heard George Clooney use this word the other day when he said, talking about the film business, that there's maybe a democracy happening now, because there's not sort of six companies controlling everything, right? Everybody has a chance to find a home, perhaps. And it's the same in music.
Sure.
You yourself could record with a guitar and sing something and put it out. There's a platform for it, right? So on one hand, there is a democratic, environment, but at the same time, that's so much competition just for ears to find you, to hear you. And so for the people that already know you, it's great. But when you're trying to grow and expand and all of that, there's all these new things, algorithms that it's we never discussed algorithms. 20 years
Right?
ago there was like no one knew what an algorithm was, and now it's like that's all we talk about. Trigger the algorithm. So it's like, and even the best of the best have to worry about it. You have to stay relevant. And I don't mean like artistically, I mean to the algorithm, right? Because
Exactly.
that's how it's pushing you out. And so it's just a whole different industry, but I try not to let that affect me creatively. I mean, if I'm going to
Okay.
be creative, I'm going to come at it from where I'm at, and so in Undercurrent, it was like the sounds were all electronic. They were on the way from Europe. I had been in Europe. I wanted to explore that and combine that with some of my exotic influences. And so that's where I was at that time. And at each phase of albums, I've tried to kind of push the envelope, but also, you know, be where I'm at and try to, combine those two things. Use the best of what was around me, I guess.
I love you have to be true to yourself because, like I said, just such a change for albums. You were able to do an entire concept, right? You were kind of figuring out
Yes.
the concept. Singles, hopefully you're doing a concept, but that might not necessarily sell, right? So you're doing now. There's what TikTok wants a hook. They want a 30-second
Yeah.
soundbite from you. It's just such a weird business
It's
now.
a weird business. And, again, it's like, it's a love and hate because, um, uh, people from afar that may not have an opportunity to be heard from a remote country, small little remote country. I was going to pick up my phone, but I won't. All they have to do is just, put it in there and it might go viral, right? And then other
Right.
people that are toiling away and killing themselves and stuff are like, why can't I get this heard? And so I don't know how we're going to get around it. It just is what it is, and I think we can't beat ourselves up too much about it because it's not going to change. It's here to stay.
Music and entertainment's always been about the hustle, so that part's never going to change. It's just trying
Exactly.
to figure out, like you said, between algorithms and trends. It's just such a tightrope we walk. But I mean, we all have to do it.
They'll
There's
have
no
to
way
do it.
around it,
Right.
unfortunately.
Right.
Now, talk about Oh My. Was there any specific inspiration from that, and what message do you hope your listeners get from this song?
Well, so the funny thing about Oh My is because you asked before, where did the inspirations come from with songwriting, and with that, I've told this story a few times, but it's like it was definitely during COVID, and I was just walking through my house and I heard that, I heard the hook of the song, and I ran and recorded it before I forgot it because it was so out of the blue. And then I was working with my collaborator Orbel, and at that time, and I sent him the voice memo, the raw voice memo, which was I was probably a little tipsy from wine. It's what I kind of remember. I think I just had dinner. Um, Not that that's always how I write, but it just happened that way. And I was like, don't judge me. This is my little jumping off point. I'm going to work on it. And he wrote back and he's like, whatever you're doing, keep doing that. So it's like, okay, he likes it. So then it was like, well, because the lyrics and the melody happen at the same time. That's one of those things I was telling you. So, it's
Right.
like, oh my, what does this mean when you say, oh my, and being a Southerner, that's like, that's a very common saying. So I had to figure out what is oh my, and you're going to do a my on top of it, right? It's got to be kind of a moment that you're having. So
Right.
then I thought, well, what am I going to do with this? Because it's a little sassy, and I just eventually the concept came up to me of running into your ex, and when you least expect it, right? And you're just having a day, and before you know it, it's like whoop, there they are, and then you survive it. A lot of things flood, a lot of feelings flood, and the good, the bad, the ugly, and you turn around and it's like, oh my, that was the concept.
Fantastic. Well, guys, you gotta get all these albums because they're amazing music. Let's kind of shift a little bit into your acting phase. Was there any maybe more impactful role you've played over this career now that really kind of keeps you involved in the movies? Is there one? Is it just what keeps you going from one to the other besides just, of course, wanting the work and loving the work, but what keeps you going towards acting and not concentrating only on singing and vice versa?
Um, Projects, if somebody has a project idea, um, that I think it is right for me, maybe to be involved in, I will do it. And at this point, I mean, I don't like sort of it's not like I'm putting myself out there going, I'll just take any job. Not that I'm above taking any job, but because I do have my music life, I understand that, an agent, their job is to find you work. And, if you're already committing to doing shows and you're in another country or you're touring, you're not available to do those jobs. So
Right.
you have to be fair to the process that you've got to, like, if this is important to you, you got to focus on that. Now I'm recording, now I'm touring. But doing, movies, especially as a producer, it takes quite a bit of time to put them together. And so now I'm at a point where I'm like, I kind of like the idea of working with people on developing a project, knowing that this is something I can be in and maybe do music for and stuff. And then and it can be on a small level, it can be on a larger scale, but and then I still can free myself up to do the other things.
Right. And I'm sure they start to enhance each other a bit too, right? Some of the stuff you've learned from music enhances the filmmaking. Things you learn from filmmaking also enhances part of the music business. So that's got to be a big
Yes,
help as well, right?
very much so. I mean, honestly, almost every job I've done in the last 10 years, I would say have come from people I knew.
Mhm.
Honestly, it's been, hey, I'm working on this project, would you do some music for it? And yes, okay. And then I learn about the project, and there might be a role in there for me that they say, and by the way, there's this. Or it's something that I've developed with people I know. So yeah, it definitely flows into each other. And I think that's great because you're already halfway there. You already are in touch with the material and the people involved.
Yeah, you're right. I think that it's very much one will help go into the other. Now, we talked about your acting was actually first started back then, and now you've been producing since 2014. I think it started with Guardian Angel,
Mhm.
and we're going to talk about the current film that you're also a producer on. How did that come about, and what aspects of producing do you like? That's very business oriented,
Oh,
and you touch on the front. Like, what drew you to the producing side?
yeah, the producing side is a different look. I have my crisp blue shirt on for you. I look like a producer today. I've just noticed that. I saw myself in the monitor there. Yeah, it's a different hat. I certainly don't wear the same clothes that I wear on stage when I go to a meeting. It's a very different because stage is stage, and those theatrics are for that. Um, yeah, I definitely have to kind of walk a line because, you know, uh, producing is all about investment, and I respect that process. I respect that, we as creators, the content creators, we come from an artistic place and a visionary place, and we see it and we want to make it happen. But you need investors and you need people to believe in it. And the risk that they take. So I understand that, and that's the biggest shift that has to take place in my head is when to talk business and when to talk creative. Because sometimes people that are taking those risks and an investment, they want to get taken up with your excitement and your journey. That's why they're kind of oftentimes even wanting to do it in the first place because they want to live vicariously in the business, that the artists do. So you want to make them feel a part of that, but it is very structured, and it's not easy. It is not easy, and our industry is constantly evolving and changing,
Right.
and I think surviving as an actor. I mean, as an actor and a singer and all of those things, all these years, I can look back and see all of the changes that have occurred, and it helps me as a producer to be able to kind of speak to how we've survived, how we've evolved,
Right.
and to embrace that evolution.
I love that. I think that's so well said. And like you said, depending on the project, producers do anything from very business minded to a lot of independence. It's very much a vanity project sometimes for some producers.
Yes.
So you have all different aspects of it, but it definitely, you do have to have the business side and get serious about it. Now you're co-starring, producing, and contributing a song to Dark Asset that's out now. How did that project come about? Because it just seems amazing. Available out now on Amazon.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, again, once again, you've heard projects people say that took 7 years to make, 8 years, absolutely, this was one of those. It went through various incarnations. It was first brought to me by a girlfriend of mine who's also a producer on the film. And she said, this writer director I know who's female has an idea. And so I met with Terry. Her name's Terry Farley, and she had an idea, which is so relevant now, about putting chip in people's heads and making them sort of extra, extra human, if you will. And I was fascinated by that. And so, we weren't sure if it was going to be like a pilot, like it's TV series or feature. And so we went through all of these different twists and turns. Ultimately, as life goes, she ended up stepping back because she was going to be involved more artistically, but she dropped back and stayed on as a producer. And we brought in another writer director, Michael Winnick, who then revamped the script kind of more towards where he wanted to take it and where we thought the world was at that time. And I really wanted to make sure that women had strong roles and were not just sort of sidekicks looking pretty. And we wanted to really feature diversity. So then we tackled it from those places, that when it came to the cast and the final sort of script, as it were. But it was also done with a group of friends. I mean, my long-term friend, Narbe Tatusian, is an amazing colorist, post-production guru. And we had been working together on many music videos over the years. We said, this is going to look beautiful and yet gritty. And we had to come up with a look and all of those things. And I could go on and on, but it was a team. It was definitely a team. And I'm grateful for how hard everybody worked.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because I did reading the research. One of the things we're in such a women's empowerment movement now. And I kind of saw how it was 3 women kind of bringing this together. And what was that like to kind of have this team? And I saw, like you said, all the teams in the different set departments. There's so many different departments in a production. And you said those were all friends you got to bring in. So talk about this empowerment of working first with women and then with these team leaders.
So I think, when you're making an independent film, you've got to rely on your independent arsenal of network, right? And
Right.
that becomes like favors and begging and borrowing and everything in between. And I was fortunate enough to cash in a lot of favors on this movie. I'm so thankful for the people that did support it. And I would say the same with my other fellow producers. We all really kind of had to cash in some chips on this, and to give it the level of quality. I mean, we have our visual effects team. Habib Zagarpour is our visual effects supervisor. I mean, he's 2-time Oscar nominated. So how do you get he had just worked on the Atom Project, and I think he was doing Quantumanium. I mean, all of these things were happening while he's working on our film at the same time. And some of that was under wraps. He couldn't even talk about it, but he still brought his A game right to our film. And his collaborating partner, Setare Samandari, she did a lot of she being a woman, did a lot of, she was the key visual effects artist. So again, woman, diversity, these were all kind of important elements to us, and using the best of what we could get access to. But it just so happens that they were also people that, had diverse backgrounds, which we loved.
Right. Amazing supporting cast. Of course, Robert Patrick, I know from Terminator, but I was a huge Scorpion television fan, and where he got to bring out a little of his humor side, because he always plays the gruff kind of guy.
He's funny.
It was kind of fun to see. And the lead actor, give me his name again. I forgot to write it down.
Byron
Oh
Fan.
my God, is he so steely and just he commands the presence when he's in there.
He's
It's
he's
amazing.
super he's super engaging. He's handsome and charming when he needs to be. He's rough and gritty when he needs to be. Don't mess with him. He's an incredible fighter, martial artist, and his roster of work is just so fun. Um, Everything from Woo Assassins to The Big Short to The Recruit on Netflix. I mean, he's got a very diverse.
Right.
But this role was perfect for him.
Well, great performances all the way around. So well made. You guys can see it now on Amazon, of course. We talked in the beginning that you've been a great ally to the LGBTQ community. Do you feel your work's intersected ever with some LGBTQ themes or causes, or any specific collaborations you can think of?
Absolutely. I mean, some of my closest friends are part of the LGBTQ community. Actually, my co-producing partner on Dark Asset, Sargon, comes from that community, and we, I just being in the creative field. So many people around me have, I don't know what the right word is, shaped, molded, helped you understand what life is like, perhaps walking in their shoes. And I know everybody has their own independent struggles, but I think the more, it's like anything, you just need to talk and absorb and be that ally whenever you can. And I've tried to lend either music or my presence to attend an event, or sing, or whatever I need to do, just to always give back, because I've received so much from the community in probably unfair ways.
Well, we appreciate. I mean, an allyship is something you learn. I mean, like you said, there's so many different aspects of the community. I was horrible with pronouns until recently. It's like there's all these different aspects. So we appreciate that a lot. And getting back to the women in film and music, I mean, you've been navigating both the music and film business now for a long time. Any unique challenges that you've faced just from the women aspect, and how do you turn those into opportunities?
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad to be in a time where we can both complain about it, but we are also the movers and shakers. It's a really cool time, because you look back at some of those amazing women from before that we mentioned, Barbara Streisand and Lucy, and women that were doing what they weren't supposed to be doing. They were running things. I
Right.
mean, when Barbara directed Yentl and when Lucy ran a studio, I mean, it's like, how far back was that? And women are always perceived as either, incapable or emotional, or whatever, or preyed upon. And so you don't want to be defensive about it, and I don't want to come in with a chip on my shoulder, like, I know you're going to disappoint me, I know you're going to do this to me. I try not to do that anymore, because it's like, if we're truly making advancements, let's come to the table and let's meet where we are. I'm going to meet you where we are, and not come with preconceived notion that you're here to disappoint me. So I think if we stay in that place, it's a fair start.
Yeah.
The men, it's like, we're talking about allies. Men are allies to us. They don't have to be the enemy of women. Some of the folks that I work with are like, family, and they have only my best interest at heart. So I think you're always, in life and in business, you're searching for allies, right?
Again, exactly. Very well said. And I mean, like I said, the business changes so much, and so advice usually has such a shelf life to it. But currently, if you were able to give advice to some aspiring artists out there that want to kind of follow in your footsteps, either dabble in the music or entertainment or both, what's the current best advice practices you can give at this point?
Mm, well, don't give up. First of all, don't give up. It is a frustrating, heartbreaking ride sometimes, but I think if you can remain flexible and open-minded and not too stuck. It's a delicate dance between having conviction to your ideas. Your ideas and your originality is what makes you you. And so sometimes it's like people are, well, why are you different? So you kind of want to keep tooting that horn, but at the same time, you really need to remain pliable and flexible and open to someone else's idea that might be bringing something to you, because my journey has been anything but predictable. And I don't think I would be talking about the things that we're talking about had I stuck to sort of one angle, right? And trying to learn the industry as much as possible, even if you are an artist. It's constantly changing. I can't keep up with, who gets paid out what, I'm not talking about that, but just a general overview about how, the industry sort of works, and being able to hold your own, because you might meet someone that's that missing link to something that you want to do. And if you're able to understand the overall structure of how things work, then you're able to maybe spot where someone you meet or a friend of a friend could maybe fill in that gap. And then you're in a better place to like get to the next step.
Oh, that's great advice. Thank you for that. Yeah, it's just, I mean, and you can never stop learning either, right? I mean, I had a friend tell me a story the other day. He's a dancer. He said like 10 years ago, he was in this basic ballet class somewhere, and Baryshnikov was two people in front of him, like taking basic. I mean, you can always learn the basics over again and always learn something from someone else, right?
Yes, it's so true. So true.
That. Well, I appreciate it. We got to start wrapping it up, Shani. Any future projects you're allowed to talk about? I mean, the entertainment business is so tough to kind of give a lot of things happening, but we have this movie. It's available on Amazon right now. We have this amazing music, but any upcoming projects you're looking forward to, or touring you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I've got some shows coming up. I'm excited. I'm going to be hitting Vancouver, Canada. I'm going to be going overseas, and I'm looking forward to seeing audiences out there. And I guess if you can follow me, you'll see where I'm going to be. And I would love for people to come out and be a part of that. I'm focusing on that over the next couple of months, and still working on projects behind the scenes. So we'll see which one bubbles up.
That is amazing. Give everyone your website. You have a fantastic website out there that has a lot of these different links. So let everyone know where they can find your website and if they can follow you on social media at all.
So my website is shanimusic.com, and it's Shani, Shani. Everybody pronounces it Shani. I don't care. It's fine, as long as you visit. And my Instagram is Shani Rigsbee. And once you hit one of those two things, it links you everywhere. So.
Shani Rigsbee, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thanks so much for sharing your story with my listeners. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for the wonderful questions. Nice to see you.
Stay on the line for me, guys. We're going to have a special 5 questions with Shani next week, so be sure to be on the lookout for that next Tuesday. We appreciate you tuning in every week to Left of Str8 Show interviews. We will see you next time. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Left of Str8 Show. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast distributor, and please give us a 5-star rating so more listeners can find us. You can follow us on social media, and be sure to check out our website for contests and other news and information. See you next week.